Welcome back to the Roundtable, new special series that we are launching. I did a combined list for everybody. Basically, I sent this to everybody in the community, got everybody's opinion, 20 movies. I personally didn't fill out one, and now I have 100 movies. Thanks to Joseph Olivas, he did the math on all this to process everything. I wanted to do it like a different series. I lost some footage. Stuff wasn't coming together. I'm far too busy to try to take on that project. So what's better than just watching the movies, going through and then talking about it roundtable style, and then getting people's opinions on whether these movies deserve to make the list or not. I believe a lot of these movies on this list will be for rewatches for most people. I do not believe that there will be a lot of fresh movies. When I did the list myself, I think I was missing maybe 12 to 15 total. So overall, it's going to be a lot of fresh watches. But I wanted everybody on the show. The rotation of panel will kind of switch up. If I get the same people, I'm going to be okay with that too. But I wanted fresh takes on the movie, get fresh watches. I don't want anybody to come in and be like, oh, I saw that movie 3 years ago. I liked it then. It's pretty good. Like, I want to have this discussion on the film. Me and Kirk and Koho. Koho will be here as much as he can. Me and Kirk have signed up for the whole ride, so we will be here for all the episodes. Kind of carry on the YLS legacy. Kirk, how are you? I know you're already going to look forward to this series.
So it's part roundtable, part YLS. We have to be nice on roundtable. But not, what rules are we going with here? Because I have words for some people right off the bat.
Based on, since no one really knows what anybody put on the movies, so no one really knows who submitted what movie, you can be as mean as you want about the decision to make the top 100.
Okay.
We will start this episode after I introduce everybody to talk about the films that just missed the list, and we can get everybody's initial reaction on that before we start. And I know some people will compare every movie that comes after to the movies that could have been left off. So that'll be interesting fun. Koho, if you would have told me in 2020 that I think you are okay with a mustache, I would have said nope. But hey, it's working. It's working for you. As a fellow bald man, you got to accept the facial hair you do have. So how are you doing? And overall, you've been considered the hot take of YLS for a while. Do you feel like some of your movies will be on here, or do you believe there? Did you submit a list? Did you submit a list for this?
I did submit a list.
Okay, so your chaos will be here. So
I think that for me, I've done a lot of growing up in life and in movie watching in the last, like, from my top 100 to this one. So there's a lot of movies that, like, people have been like, reevaluate this. Your takes have changed. And I'll watch it and be like, yeah, you know what? Actually, you're right. This isn't as bad as I thought it was. Or I like this thing. So it'll be fun to come back to this list knowing that there are, like, cornerstone, quintessential Kohoisms that will never go away, that'll probably be here, that I'll still defend. But there will definitely be takes on here that people will be like, that I'll have to, like, walk back a 2019 Koho take or a 2021 Koho take at this point, and be like, yeah, that's actually a good movie. So this will be fun.
Next up, Payson. Payson, I would say agree sometimes, disagree a lot of other times with movies with Payson. How are you doing today, and did you enjoy your time with these 5 movies at least?
I'm doing swell. I saw Madam Web today and wanted to hang myself from the ceiling of my theater and die. It made me hate cinema. So watching these 5 movies that I think were all really good just reminded me, like, oh, there is joy in life. Like, maybe humanity wasn't a mistake. So I'm excited.
This is Noah's shot at the other people I just introduced, but 2 of my favorite people to have on Roundtable in general are here tonight. Zach Ford and Matt Quaylar. Matt, how are you doing? You always usually pick interesting picks. This time you got no picks. I actually tied your hand behind your arm or whatever, your back, and said you had to be on this episode after telling you a movie is here. You said you did not want to show up based on that, but I made you be here anyways. So how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Yeah, I think this is an interesting list of movies that we get to experience. I think there's only one I hadn't seen before, but I definitely had to be here to defend one of them. So I'm glad I could be here tonight.
I wonder what was the one movie you hadn't seen before. We'll wonder what that is. And last but not least, me and Zach share some opinions. Normally, my rivalry on YLS, he comes at me pretty strong. So now he's going to come at me pretty strong for these 5 movies, I would assume, if we disagree. How are you doing, Mr. Ford?
I'm doing good. I have like a project I started that I can describe more off camera that has me watching a lot of movies that don't matter. So it's nice to watch like some all-time greats. And the project I'm doing will never be completed, but for right now, it's nice to have this as a reprieve from that. Because I'm just watching like, I don't want to spoil movies, but all-time important movies. It's great. Can't go wrong.
All right. I can't wait to find out what that project is. Just to get everybody on the same page. So just of all of us, everybody submitted. There were 30 total submissions, 20 movies at a piece. I did decide the tiebreaker on majority of these of where they rank currently. So that is one thing that I will say. If they were tied on points, I rank them on where I thought they should be, just based on in the same margin. So they're didn't make the list, didn't miss the list. It was basically the difference between if they were 91 to 95, they were in that ballpark. So I just made that deciding where they were, old YLS style. So the movies that missed the list, before we get into the movies that made the list, these movies are not on the list. And you can have your general reactions after the fact. But movies not made the list. West Side Story, the original. And just to cover the air, I do not believe the remake made it either. But I just want to say 1961 is not on here. Or whenever it came out. Point Break, the original. Not the remake either. Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. Logan. It Happened One Night. The Truman Show. It had 3 votes from 3 different people, but didn't equal to enough point value to carry it over the 1 vote for one person. And Dog Day Afternoon. So 7 films did not make the list. They were 1 point shy. So if you, I will send Zach, but if you had 1 off, if you would have put 1 up, it would have forced into the tiebreaker and would have forced me to decide between a few of these movies. Overall, general thoughts on those movies said miss. Do you think there's some gem that should have been on there, shouldn't have? Thoughts? Roundtable style. Talk about it.
I think I'll be the most. I'm trying to be the most objective about this. Where I think there are definitely some movies there that I think should be on the list, such as Dog Day and It Happened One Night are probably the 2 big submissions there. But at the same time, this is a top 100. There are so many incredible films that we can talk about, like over 1,000 just absolutely incredible films, that I think when you say like, oh, this movie barely missed the cut, I don't take that as personally as some, because I'm just like, well, 100 in the grand scheme of things is so small, and we only get to talk about a certain number. So like, I'm not like personally insulted.
I would say this though, Payson. I agree that yeah, sure, that's 100 movies. There's probably 100 movies better, but are the movies that made this list going to be better than those movies? We'll see. And
it's going to be the challenge.
And I will just say that I was objective with Dog Day Afternoon. I did not put it as my number 1. I hope everybody else was as objective in making their list, but
yeah, it's going to be impossible to have real firm feelings about what missed out until we know what replaced it. So, I mean, I love Truman Show. Watched it recently. I think it's a perfect movie. I didn't watch it recently enough to put it on my own personal list, so I can't be mad about it. But I'm sure I'm going to have some movies ahead that I'm like, Truman Show's better. Dog Day, come on. What are we doing here?
in the attempt of making like a sight and sound 100 greatest movies of all time list, and seeing things like It Happened One Night, Dog Day Afternoon, West Side Story not make it, makes this very interesting. And me personally, the Kohoism of me is that Pirates of the Caribbean 1 not being on is a bummer and a half. But like I understand, but also it's great.
I mean, I'm kind of disappointed that we're not recognizing female directors with Point Break not making the list, but I'm sure that we'll make up for it down the line.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I need to know the female director count now. I'm sure it might be 0. I will say, I did something extremely stupid in this. You announced these movies have blown my mind. I'll talk more about this later. Without spoiling things.
You are
Muted.
good, sir.
First muted. Take a drink.
I knew we had under 5 minutes.
I'm normally not muted on Roundtable. I'm always muted on YLS, so that makes perfect sense.
I should switch to the wireless
okay.
press. I can use the clips.
No, not happening at all. So, with that being said, we are going to go through. Everything was ranked. I gave them the list. The number one, the first movie, 100, that just made the list, is Playtime from 1967. I'm just going to lead ahead of this because I think I'm going to be on the minority. This was listed as a comedy. Ha! No, no. I've said this. I said this when describing this to people. This is the movie that should have made the sight and sound actual list. For I could see the number one film of that list was the lady that just does chores for a living, for 2 hours. Yeah, whatever. This in general, I was bored to tears. I'll be honest with you. Me and Matt even talked about it prior. With subtitles on this, it doesn't really matter. You didn't really miss much because it just is going through. It's shot as what. Yeah. So it I could see how it works. If this is somebody's style, fine. Hats off to you. I was awful. It was awful. It was an awful time for me. It just has nothing in a movie that I actually go for or seek out. So it was already facing a very downward slope. I know how 3 people felt. I'm gonna go to the 2 people that I don't know how they felt. Matt, what was your take on this movie?
So this was the one film of the list that I hadn't seen, and I mean it's very interesting. It's definitely a lot of work was put into it. I can imagine making this. I can definitely see why someone would definitely have it on their list. Is very interesting. I definitely the closest thing I could relate it to, like I said, was a Mr. Bean movie or something like that almost. Or I think one of the reviews I saw said it's watching Where's Waldo, but all the characters are Waldo. So I can definitely see how someone would really enjoy this movie. If you watch it over and over, you're going to see something different every time because there's just so much in the background of it. So I don't have a problem with it making the list. It definitely wouldn't make my personal list, but I can understand it. And like I said, I watched it on YouTube and there was no subtitles, so I didn't know if there were subtitles. That's why I asked Cody, but I feel like I pretty much got the gist of it. So,
Koho, how'd you think about Did you enjoy Playtime?
This is like if Wes Anderson's dad made a movie, and it's so not for me. The whole thing feels like a big art piece, where it's he's I'm going to do something weird with the medium of film, and whatever he's doing is just not my speed. Respect for the attempt, I guess. Respect for the artistry behind it. I get there's a vision. I'm not seeing it, so I didn't enjoy it. I didn't laugh. I was bored. I had the subtitles on, Matt, and it doesn't. I can't get from doesn't help. Nothing changes with the subtitles on or off. So not my speed.
I was an hour in, and I was like, "Did I miss something? Something had to have happened at this point that I am missing completely." I was so confused. I was waiting for somebody to fall down the stairs. I was waiting for some slapstick something to happen. It doesn't. It just continues on. So, 3 people, I think, at least they told me that they were more positive, and I saw one person's review that they were positive. So, I'll let you guys take it. You guys just take on deserving list and what you guys got from the film and what you liked from it. Go ahead.
I can see you being, it's not a laugh out loud comedy. So I mean, if you're going and expecting that, you're definitely not going to get that. But I do think it has, you're talking about people falling down the steps. It's not that obvious. But I think there's so many like subtle gags in here, and I just love the way that like the choreography and the set design and production design and everything, the sound design all comes together to just basically make like one continuous like I said, you're not like cracking up at it, but there's so many clever things in there that, just this is my second watch, and there's so many things I caught the second time through that I didn't see on the first time because it's so dense. And I just love that every aspect of the filmmaking came together to make something I thought was funny. Like I said, I wasn't cracking up, but I thought that there was a lot of wit and cleverness to it that I enjoyed.
Yeah, this was my first time watching this movie. I didn't really know anything about it except I know the director Jacques Tati is a fairly acclaimed French director, and I know Dylan really loves this movie. And I just sat down and watched it, and yeah, I loved it. Like Koho kind of said, it does kind of feel a little Wes Anderson-esque. I think it's weird. The first thing that this reminded me of was it reminded me of some of the production design in Barbie, and funnily enough, Greta Gerwig said this was one of the movies that inspired her to make Barbie. Like, this was one of the 10 movies that had an Umbrellas of Cherbourg, so I was like, cool, happy I picked that up. Yeah, I just love, I think probably my favorite moments of this movie are watching this older guy, get used to this new technology, like the scene where he goes outside and he says, hey, where's your car parked? And it's like, oh, here's my parking garage, and it's literally just a parking meter, and he's not used to this new stuff in France. And yeah, like Kirk said, the sound design is unbelievable. Like, when you're viewing the life inside the apartment, you're just hearing the water from the fountain drizzle, or when you're in the office cubicles and you hear the typing going on, or even the opening scene of the airport. I really got into the humor and just all the little gags that are happening. It's very subtle. I'm going to need to rewatch this again because I saw a lot of people list this as a satire, and maybe I'm just not I'm not up on my French history to really understand that satire, so I want to look more into it. I know this movie is in the Criterion Collection, so probably on the next sale I'm gonna buy it so I can watch all of those special features and really get educated on it. But yeah, I really, really love this movie.
Yeah, this is my second watch, and I would say after the first time I watched it, I was a little closer to confused on what was I supposed to get out of this, and I think a rewatch, knowing that it's not a laughing riot kind of joke movie, even though I do think it's a joke a second movie. It's just more oh, that's witty, rather than, which is kind of my kind of humor anyways. Rather than laughing out loud, I was able to go with the expectations. Also watched it kind of high, which then had me with I had lots of thoughts to share. I remember very little. So I was I have essays and essays of thoughts I'm interested in. But I don't think the satire is as much of the history of France as much as it's just the modern culture of the time and how everything is just so busy. And I think that's the importance of the sound design is there's just incessant noise at all times. Even when it's a quiet room, there's still a buzzing happening from a light, and you're outside, you can hear all the traffic, and there's no score to really focus on that noise. And then when there is diegetic music, it's still just blending into the chaos of all the noise in the bar. And it actually battles another song being played at the same time. They're kind of clashing. Which just adds into there's just so much happening in our life and none of it really matters. We just embrace nonsense as how we get through life. And I will say Hulot, who's the character that Tati plays, is my spirit animal, I realized as a character, because he just he is the premier slow pacer of cinema. He just can't stand still. He's not fast or aggravated, but he's just always seems like he just needs to move and wander. And when he's talking to people, he's leaning forward he's gonna fall into them because he has to try so hard to stand still and pay attention because he just needs to constantly kind of fidget. And I see a lot. And also one more thing about the sound, because you talked about the dialogue. And I did have some prep for this because I'm really into the French animator Sylvain Chomet, who did The Illusionist, the animated one, and Tribute to Belleville, who it's very Tatsuya oriented, especially Illusionist. It is a Hula character. But the dialogue in those movies, which is they're speaking, is in no language. It's just gibberish. And that's essentially what this is. Like, they're saying words, but once again, the point is to blend in with the rest of the noise. Nothing they're saying matters. It's just part of the constant buzz that's happening around us.
And I will say too, I think a lot of the satire that Pace was talking about, like there's a lot of social satire where I think like just people like moving in and out. Like there's that scene where like I think it's the president of France is walking by and there's like a janitor standing right next to him. So I mean, like I think that intersection. I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what they're saying, but I think
like consumerism.
Yeah, and like just there's a real motif of like doors and entranceways, and like there's like not doors where people think they are, and like. And like vice versa. So I think like a lot of like false social barriers is like some kind of point they're trying to make. So I think there is a lot of depth there, a lot to be mined in there. And but I do think it's like Zach said, it's not specific to that time, that place. I think it's more specific to the time, of just the world that was going on there.
And I kind of wanted to get on what Matt was saying. I know Matt said you weren't able to watch it with the subtitles, even though I watched it on the Criterion channel, so I did have subtitles. But I weirdly didn't feel like I needed the subtitles just because I thought Jacques Tati did such a great job at like visually like telling the story like through such little dialogue. Like even though there are subtitles, like there are very few instances where characters are talking. And I forget who said it. I want to say it's Spielberg said like, if a movie is truly great, you should be able to turn it on mute and know exactly what's happening. And this is a movie where I could totally see what was happening, even though like I didn't have there wasn't like a ton of dialogue. And I think that's just because movie is a visual storytelling medium. Like if we wanted to just listen to people talk, we'd all be listening to the radio and listening to Orson Welles talk about the world destroying.
It's a silent movie that isn't silent. It's a dialogueless movie. Yeah. The speaking is just part of the chatter. It's not dialogue.
Oh. Just proves Spielberg's a moron, so that's fair.
You not like Schindler's List?
No, I do, but you know what? I enjoy the dialogue that's in Schindler's List. I want to put it on mute. What a dumb take. What a moron. Eternal War of the Worlds and tell me what the hell's going on, jackass. But overall, yeah, just shot-wise, I can understand where people like saw that and like thing, like the people walking around with the fucking glass for like, and they're just staring. I'm just like, I just don't get it. It just wasn't for me. And then I think I am shocking zero people with this opinion.
Comedy and you hate laughing.
This wasn't funny. Sorry, Zach. There was no humor.
I'm trying to say that about the next movie we're going to talk about. And you also hate.
No, I mean I could talk about some specific bits. Like I love like the bit where the guy is where they show this. They have that you have that like bird's eye view of the cubicles, and the one guy's on the one side, and he calls him up to come get something, and he comes and gets it from like right outside the cubicle the guy's calling from, and then walks the whole way back. That's what I love about the movie. Takes its time. Like the movie's in no rush. Like I love the fact
that we know
it takes like a full minute and a half just for that little joke to play.
Yep. And that's a thing. No, that's a 2 hour and 30 minutes of let's let it play out. Cole, if you watch this on 2 times speed, I kind of give you credit for it because I think this movie might actually play really well at 2 times speed. If I'm going to be honest with you, you'll see him move a lot faster, and I bet them walking with that window.
It would feel more like a comedy, let me tell you.
Yeah, it would look funnier. Okay. Everybody's rating on this. I'm curious what everybody gave it. We'll go with Zach because I already saw yours. So go ahead.
You a 9 out of 10. Wait, 4.5.
Letterbox, sir.
It's still a 10.
No, it's not. It doesn't. There's nothing that ever says 9 out of 10. Nothing says 9 out of 10. It's the stars. Payson.
4.5 as well. Really love this movie.
Matt.
It's a solid 3.
Kirk.
I have it at 4.
2. Respect. That's like the respect level of just never watch again. Koho. Forgot your name for a second.
Star and a half.
How much?
1.5.
Wow.
Lord,
ran the
me,
gamut on
sir.
that.
Yeah, we hit all the numbers. Good job, guys. No one, you're good. All right. Next one. First one missed. Second one hit. We're taking the Flying Dutchman,
Ooh.
Captain Jack, Davy Jones, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Dead Man's Chest. Who has anybody not seen this before? All right, perfect. I'm curious what everybody will say. I know there's a few people that are very high on this movie, and I'm curious where other people are going to line. So I'm going to actually start with the people I don't really know where they line up perfectly. So Zach, what is your take on Dead Man's Chest?
Bro, I fucked up.
Oh,
I watched Curse of the Black Pearl because I saw the Pirates of the Caribbean poster and just assumed we picked the one that's supposed to be good. And that's the one that I hated as a kid. Or because I remember just being like, all the action scenes were like so long. I've seen it since it came out, so I have no real thoughts. I got lots of thoughts about Black Pearl.
okay. So you can take a timeout for this one. Payson.
Yep.
What is your take?
Yeah, this movie fucking rocks. Like I remember this is like one of the first like major like event movies I remember as a kid where like I remember that opening weekend my family took me to go see it and there was literally a line going out of the theater because I think it was the highest grossing movie of 2006. Correct me if I'm wrong, but yeah, no, it was an event when that movie came out, and I still love it just as much as I did back then. Probably even more because I used to be on the train of I think the first one is the best movie. I think now I just think this one is the superior one just because I think it just takes what that first movie did and just like builds upon it. I think this is maybe the best Johnny Depp is as Jack Sparrow. I think Davy Jones might even be a better villain than Barbossa. I think the effects still to this day, like I think you can count on one hand the amount of movies that have better CGI than this movie. Like it still looks incredible. Like we were just talking about with Playtime, like a sign of a good movie is one where you can turn off the volume and you can still tell everything that's going on. You can literally tell everything that's going on in this movie because it's so just visually imaginative. I think this is like just crazy. Like the score by Hans Zimmer is incredible. That final fight on Islas Cruces between Jack, Will, and oh my god, why the fuck can I not pull
Norrington?
Tom Hollander's kid? Yeah, Norrington. That fight, just the cliffhanger. Does it lead into a bad movie? Yes. Did I care at the time? And like, was that World's End still like one of my most hyped movies at the time because of how good this cliffhanger was? Yes. Fuck you, Gore Verbinski. That movie sucks, and I still you. Gosh. Oh. Here for wellness, but fuck you, At World's End sucked. But Dead Man's Chest is so good.
I mean, yes, it's a very bad movie, but the first two are like really great movies. I think it's interesting that the first one did miss over the second one, but I will say that I'm a very big on the second movie. I think the second movie is my favorite because it does everything I want in a sequel. It builds on the lore from the first one and then makes it better. But it doesn't convolute it like it does in the very next one. Like the next one like convolutes the shit out of it. I think like honestly, like Davy Jones in general is like one of my like all-time favorite villains in any movie. Like I think he's done so well. I think Bill Nye he like gives it all. And you're right about the CGI; it just works super well. And honestly, it works super well, and it has like one of my all-time favorite characters from the series is not even in it. Like he's in it at the very end. Like Barbossa, they don't have to rely on Jeffrey Rush at all, and it's still as good. I just thought it's just, and no, if you muted it, you wouldn't get Jar of Dirt, and that should just be
You wouldn't
illegal.
get Joe Dirt?
No, Jar of Dirt.
Oh, Jar of Dirt. Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
That's why we don't mute stuff, so you get everything. But overall, yeah, I think this is the last time we get Captain Jack as not a character of him, like as a sleepwalking like person, like through the role. Like I think this is like the best he's been in it. So,
Can I say like one real quick thing that I just find fascinating?
well, you're already talking, so it'd be really
Okay.
weird if you don't say it. Yeah.
This movie is only 20 minutes shorter than At World's End, and that is fascinating because At World's End feels like it's 5 hours longer than Dead Man's Chest. Like, it's insane. It's actually insane. Like, what happened between this movie and that movie? Like,
Man, I wish this was like a roast session on At World's End, like somebody put that on the list. It's not here, but I'm glad you're so angry with it. But it raises a very good question, and I think this is the question that needs to be asked. Dead Man's Chest is a fantastic movie. Dead Man's Chest, I have so much fun watching. I enjoy. Is it 100 best movies of all time? And like that to make the list, and some of those movies below, I think are interesting. I think that's an interesting subject where we can cover that in a second. I'm curious about Kirk and Matt, and then of course we'll let Koho gush. But go ahead.
It's my course issues the same one I had when I first saw it. It's about a good 30 to 40 minutes too long. None of these movies should be more than 2 hours long. But I mean, I enjoyed this for mostly what it is. Bill Nighy is really fun in it. When I first saw it, when it first came out, I was like shocked when Jeffrey Rush shows up at the end. That got me. That was probably one of the last times I've been like that shocked at like somebody surprisingly showing up at the end of the movie. That's a great cliffhanger. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely some of the action scenes they probably could have done away with because they get a little repetitive at times. But yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. Definitely, I don't see, honestly, probably any of these movies need to be on this list. But I mean, if you have to put one on here, this would probably be the one to do it. So.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't put any pirate movies on my personal list. I have no problem with this making it. I enjoy, like Pace, and I enjoy a good Gore Verbinski movie as much as the next guy. But no, I wouldn't have minded both. I like the first two. I wouldn't mind either. With knowing the first one's not on it, if any other Pirates movies make this list, it's going to be very upsetting. But I'm out of the movies that are going to probably be in consideration. I think this is okay. But yeah, I've always loved this movie. I think it's great. I was going back and looking. I feel like this is one of like the last, at least especially in live action, one of the last like really pure pieces of Disney magic you get before they unmask and reveal themselves as the soulless money grabbing corporation we know them to be today. Like I feel like this could have been an animated movie in the 50s and captured this same kind of feel. If you look at Davy Jones's crew, which I always talk about, is probably my favorite set of special effects in any movie ever. I love just pausing any scene and just looking at the details of them, and they hold up. Like they're so, like Pace said, you compare this to 90% of the CGI movies that are coming out today, and those look like garbage compared to this. And I mean, there are scenes like in broad daylight. That final third act is in bright beach sunlight, and you see every detail of these guys, and they all look pitch perfect. So I just love the way they look, and I just love the story. Like I said, it really just captures all that magic. You get that real like that pirate feel from it, that Disney pirate feel, and you don't get that too many times after this, including the sequels that come after. So yeah, again, I didn't put pirates on my list, but I have no problem this being, especially in the 90s. I have no problem this hitting the list.
I just think the CGI this, and you compare like Flash that just came out.
Yeah,
it's like. How does that even work? I say in addition, this is one of the last movies like when it stopped being an art form. I feel like soon after this is when they just start grinding them out, and whatever gets on screen. Like this is the last time you could tell people cared and put detail into it.
Cared about the movie more than the release date.
Yeah.
Koho, does it deserve to be top 100?
Genuinely, yes. I do think this is a movie that should be in the top 100 movies of all time. Because when you view big blockbuster filmmaking, like on the whole, when you go,
look at Zach Ford's face was priceless. I'm sorry.
When you look at big budget Hollywood filmmaking, there is not much that I think can go toe to toe with Dead Man's Chest on a art level, on a costume level, on a story level. The way that this movie, in just every second of this movie, is filled with important details that help flesh this world out. From the beginning, from the opening, this movie's on go mode to the end. There's not a wasted second. There's not a wasted character. There's not a wasted line. I think everything in this movie is so perfectly plotted and paced out that I love the story that Elliot and Rocio craft with this one, down to just like when Norrington re-enters at the beginning of the third act, and you're like, you don't really get much about Norrington up to this point as to where he went or where this important character from the last movie was, and in just 2 or 3 lines of dialogue, you have everything you know about what happened in Norrington, where they went, what he's been up to, his relationship to the characters, all in the sentence, my God, you didn't try to sail through the hurricane. Gives you everything you need to fill you in from 1 to 2. I think that I wouldn't go so far as Payson to say that Johnny Depp is better in this one than the first one personally.
That may have been
like as much as I love him, I think he is really good in this movie. I think he's a little bit better in the first one, maybe because it's just the first time you see it. But I feel like there's so many performances in this that don't get talked about that are really good. I think obviously people talk about Bill Nighy, but like I think Stellan Skarsgård is phenomenal as Bootstrap Bill in this movie. Like really comes into a character that's like foreshadowed in the first movie, and absolutely gives so much depth and just pain to this person. And you also have like Tia Dalma, who in just a couple seconds of screen time in this first one, Naomi Harris steals every scene she's in, like completely amazing as Tia Dalma in this movie. Like, and just down to a touch of destiny and throwing the things. I think every element of this movie, from beginning to end, feels like everyone said, crafted by a person who really cared about what they were doing. Gore Verbinski, I think, is a very interesting director. As I've gone through, and I think this is one of the most impressive directing jobs he has across his whole filmography. Just how many plates he's juggling, how many elements he's juggling, how many incredible performances he's juggling, the size of the cast and the size of the scope, and everything has to work for this to be good, let alone great. And I think the way that they hit on every beat is really impressive. So I think if you're going to point to a big budget blockbuster has to be on the top 100 movies of all time, you'd be hard pressed for me to find one that's better than this. And I remember like way back in like 2019 where there was or 2020, there was a moment on YLS where Cody was like, huge change, guys, huge change. Lion King, my favorite, Departed, closing in, whatever. And he kept doing that. And I was like, how do you change your number one movie like that? It gets close day and day between La La Land and Dead Man's Chest for me. These two are so close to being my favorite movie of all time. It's a game of inches. So Dead Man's Chest is probably the best blockbuster that you can pick for a top 5.
At least my two have like a decision, like a good decision. That
This
one
movie
seems
is
pretty
don't
tough.
have too much power.
Yeah. I do quote that ending where she's like, if you'd travel to the end of the world to get Captain Jack back, would you? Like, and then he just like shows up, then Barbossa walks down the stairs. Just like, I agree with Matt. Like, I miss the time where you just didn't get like, this person has signed a contract and this person is going to be in like 6 movies and they're in there. Because like going through, I watched Barbossa die in the last movie. He's not going to be in this movie. And then he walks down the stairs. It's like a general, like, holy shit. It's like, I still think, like, the one mess up, like, Infinity War does. So, like, if they kept everything under wraps, like, you can't tell anybody, the snap happens and everybody's like, the fuck is going on? We don't know what the next movie is. But, I mean, it still has an effect, but it doesn't have the same, like, that kind of effect, which is so cool. Yeah, and I think it's interesting. The first one misses, this one hits. I think they're very close in my eyes. Like, I like both very much. I always look forward to getting done with the first one so I can watch the second one. But Kirk touched something I honestly agree with. Like, the Disney magic. Like, I don't know what the promotional was or, like,
just looked it up.
Hold on. How do you know where I'm going?
You're going to talk about who was in charge of Disney at the time, I'm guessing, right?
No.
Oh, well, where are you going?
Not at all. I'm talking about, like, there was, like, it played on, like, the DVDs, and it's like, let's go on an adventure, and it, like, plays, and, like, Captain Jack is, like, on the thing, and it's, like, it has that, like, Disney magic, like, associated with it. Yeah, we have our heading. Like, that stuff is just so, like, old school Disney, like, early, where I just found it so, like, it's something that you don't get, because I remember the first time that the moonlight like hit those characters in the first Pirates, and you're like, holy shit, this is not a Disney movie. Like, this isn't a Disney. Like, I just remember, like, that doesn't feel like Disney. So, and then for them to, like, honestly top that with the Bill Nighy in that suit and that, like, the tentacles and how they all moved and stuff. And I will still say that dice game, I own that dice game. So much fun still to this day, but that scene is so intense. Like, I think it's so cool. So, I say all these things like, does it deserve it? I think how I'm describing it does grant it, like in that position where it does hold that. It just doesn't fit like the certain sight and sound of some people. So interesting to see. Go ahead.
I will say, Koho touched on Stellan Skarsgård. It is objectively funny that in these movies people are mistaking Will and Bill Turner for each other, because Stellan Skarsgård and Orlando Bloom look nothing alike. Nothing alike.
You look just like him, I swear, is a line in the first movie, and then he shows up in this one. You're like, really?
What the fuck are people talking about?
I mean, he's been soaking in the water for a while.
I'm really curious to see what Zach's opinion on Black Pearl was. But we might do a bonus episode where we find that out.
I liked it. There.
We'll get star rating. Koho, you're 5. I'll save everybody, right? Payson.
4.5. I was a little too harsh on Gore Verbinski. I don't like At World's End, but you're still a good drink.
Oh, it's bad. It's one of my. I fell asleep in the midnight showing. It's one of the.
At the time, until Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, it was my most disappointing movie of all time for me. Like,
I will say this will help you out. The next time you have to watch World's End, you'll save a lot of time and a lot of frustration. Just fast forward the crab scene.
Fair, yeah.
It actually flies, and it's a lot better. It doesn't do anything for the film. He comes back. We all realize he comes back. It's all
about At World's End is like, okay, so this one has like this awesome 3-way sword fight, and what does the next one have? Just 2 ships boringly just circling.
I will fight you. That is hold on, very quickly, and this is the one thing I'll say. The coolest fucking third act in the history of film is putting 2 pirate ships in a fucking maelstrom and having them swing back and forth to kill each other. That's
I want you to discover color, my friend. I want you to discover color.
Did you just say the coolest third act ever?
The coolest third act of all time, when you look up fucking pirate ships in a giant-ass whirlpool fighting each other to the goddamn death in the biggest fight for their lives, fucking yes!
Too bad everybody's fucking asleep.
Just
everybody's asleep. Matt.
I mean, I was going to give it 4 stars, but after Koho's reaction, I got to bump it down to 3.5.
Yeah.
Fair. Kirk.
Yeah. You guys know my rating system. Like, anything 4 and above is rarefied air, and just in this conversation, yes. I think I've had it 3.5 most of the time. I'm going to bump it up to 4. It's going to reach that height for me.
Yeah, and it's a 5. It's a 5 for me. It's one of those movies that I will always enjoy. Okay, we're going to the very next one. Interesting topic. This is probably not the group that I would normally ever have this conversation with. There's a lot of other people that probably would. It is Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring. We are heading to Middle Earth. This has been a talking point. I think this franchise does something that's like, I think for me and Kirk it was kind of surprising, but like Ethan Beller like has these as like his top movies. Like he loves these films, which knowing Ethan, I just don't put those 2 and 2 together normally. So I think that's very interesting. I just watched these with Tim at his house, so I kind of have a different appreciation for them now. More than I did. I always enjoyed them. But they are films that have been like critically revered and like fandom like revered. Like people love these. They're geek out. So I'm curious to see, because I'm going to surprise everybody. All 3 Lord of the Rings films are on this top 100. They have all made the film. So they will all be here. We will watch me, Kirk, will watch all Middle Earth. So I'm curious, did everybody saw this prior, right?
Yes.
Okay, interesting for me, because I think it was last year, was it? Zach, that you revisited this for the first time, right? Or you watched this for the first time?
I saw it in theaters when it came out, and I pretty much sure I slept for 2/3 of it. So yeah.
Okay, so I'm kind of curious, like, so you kind of have like the freshest take on it because you let years pass before seeing it again. So what was your take on the very first film? And you watched the first one, right? You didn't watch Two Towers?
And I rewatched it. So I've seen it twice in a year.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I did. I watched the right film. That's why I fist pumped. I got nervous for a little bit. I do love Fellowship of the Ring. Now that you tell me all 3 movies are on the list, now it's a fuck up. Like, this is easily the best one for me. I think because I'm a sucker for like bringing a team together, and you really get to know all the personalities of the different Fellowship so well, and then they're not even together the rest of the series, so it's just not as exciting. Also, just a lot of beautiful green. I just like beautiful green settings. You get to see a lot of what's the elf world called?
Rivendell.
Thank you, Rivendell. It's just like
so good.
A top tier set design, just absolutely beautiful. I would say that instead of me talking, just cut out everything Koho said on his 10-minute thing about pirates and just paste it here about Fellowship. I just felt like he was describing the wrong movie. He was just a movie ahead on like how can you put this together. That there's so much moving pieces and kind of an unadaptable book of such a really well thought out broad world that he's able to bring into reality, which is great. And I think what holds this one better ahead of the others is there's just like less war, and a lot of the fighting can just run on for a long time, and less like gloomy Frodo. You get Frodo still like a little optimistic and hopeful about the thing. And I think the emotional beats of this hits super well. The ending with Sam is absolutely lovely, and one of the best moments of the franchise of him going into the boat at the end and saying, "I'll have to follow you. That's my duty." And is it Boromir? Is that Sam Bean's name or Sean Bean's name? Mm-hmm. Yeah, and his death is very moving and well led up to too. That all works.
Yeah, absolutely. So Koho's a big fan of these films. So Koho, what's your take on Fellowship of the Ring?
So you know how I like talk about there's those movies that like that I had to revisit. Many big ones for those include the Harry Potter franchise. My opinion's changed drastically. Lord of the Rings isn't quite there. But I wanted to see
no Gore Verbinski if he directed it.
But I will say that I do think the Lord of the Rings trilogy is a good trilogy with 3 good movies that are very well made. It's not that they're bad, it's that they're not my genre. Then they've never been my genre. I can respect all 3 of them, and I actually have a good time watching a lot of all 3 of them. My issues with them just come from my issues with Middle Earth in general is that the 2 different trilogies they have are fundamentally 2 different kinds of fantasy. There's like a fairy tale fantasy with The Hobbit, and then quest fantasy with Lord of the Rings. And quest fantasy has never been my thing. I've never been big on we have a thing that we have to go blow up, and it's about 9 hours of us getting to the place and then destroying the thing and walking away. Like that plot line for me just is not my speed. And I know Pace is sitting here going, Pirates of the Caribbean's a treasure hunt. It's not the same thing. No, a treasure hunt is not a quest fantasy.
Specifically the last 2.
Neither of those are quest fantasy, though. Anyway, my point is, no, they're not.
We have to get the key. We have to get the key.
That's a treasure hunt.
Let's go get the Fountain of Youth, baby. The Trident of Poseidon. Let's go, baby.
Okay, you're talking about 4 and 5. Yes, I agree, which is why they're significantly worse than the other 3 for me. So my point is with Fellowship. The key's not a quest, that's a treasure hunt. They get the key at the beginning of the movie, they get the piece of paper, and then Will gets the key on his own independently of Jack, because Jack abandons the hunt for the key because he's running for his life. So that's what I'm saying.
Very specific.
Guys,
move on.
Anyway,
he just explained exactly what a quest is, right? I just want that on the record.
Will's technical quest in Dead Man's Chest is to find Jack Sparrow then, because he's not looking for the key. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is no one actively is looking for the key until it becomes a change of whatever. Anyway,
you love quests.
The point that I'm trying to make with Fellowship of the Ring is I was trying to be nice and be like, what a good movie. Well made. Actually, like, I like a lot of the characters. And I like Rivendell and the settings. And now y'all are like, oh, what a fucking idiot for not saying it's 5 stars when you loved MSS. So, fuck you. Half star. Fuck this shit. Lord of the Rings is trash. You're all assholes. No, I just don't like all the characters in Lord of the Rings. I just don't connect to a lot of that. But I like some of them. I like the adventure along the way in this one specifically. I personally like the action beats. I think Peter Jackson directs action really fucking well. So the others are better for me. But
so as we're 3 movies in, I'm treating this a lot like YLS, where I'm just doing structural conversations instead of like actual free flow. So I'm hating my life right now. So just overall, like the remaining 4 of us right now, overall thoughts on Lord of the Rings. Like, is there standouts to you? Does it still, this many years later, does it still like get the same hype? I know Kirk has said in the past, like, if these movies just disappeared, he wouldn't miss anything. So I'm curious if that's just still stayed after a rewatch.
I mean, I think I'm somewhere close to Koho, where it's just not my thing. Like, these self-serious epics just don't, like, I mean, like Dune, like everybody's psyched for Dune 2. That's going to come and go and not even hit my radar. And I hope you guys will watch it and love it, and it's awesome and you enjoy it, but that's just not my thing. So I kind of how I feel about this. Rewatching the first one, like I think it's one of those movies where I watch it, I enjoy it, and I walk away, and it's like, okay. When I sat down and watched it, I had a great time with it. I think it does a great job setting up Frodo's arc and his storyline to come. I'm bummed out that all 3 are on there, to be honest with you. I'm fine with having one on there as representation, but I feel like the problem is that each one of these movies needs the other one to be what it is. And independently, it's much more, the whole is more than some of the parts. There's a reason why the third one won Best Picture and Best Director, because the story was complete and they're rewarding that whole story. I think as individual films, they don't necessarily deserve the accolades they get, because you need all those different parts from different movies to make it what it is. But other than that, like, I think the movie is fine. If we're picking one movie to be on to represent the trilogy, which I think it should be, this wouldn't be my pick. But I have no like major qualms to the movie itself.
Yeah, I agree with Kirk that I don't think that all 3 movies should be on here. I think it should just be one to represent it. I mean, I don't know which one you would pick. I mean, my personal favorite is the second one, of course. Probably say the third one is probably be the one to represent the whole thing. I mean, it's an amazing achievement, deserves to be on the list in some form or another. If you want to see how great of an achievement it is, go watch the Hobbit movies, and you can see the same guy who could not pull it off again. So, but yeah, so I don't have a problem with being on the list. Like I said, I wish it was just one movie, but I get it. So.
Yeah, it's kind of hard because I can't really determine I can't draw the line on something else. Like, I didn't make any criteria for it. I just let them run, and yeah. I agree that there should have been one, because like when I even did the top 100, I didn't include a ton of trilogies. Like I tried to avoid that, because if they're like, I didn't include any of these because I think they're just so one giant movie, basically. Like, I know what they are. But I just couldn't say, oh, I love Two Towers the most, but I can't have Two Towers without the first one. Like, it doesn't make any sense, like, if that was just the starting point. So, Payson, what's your take on Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, like the Pirates movies, these movies were very, very like important to my love of movies as a kid. I still really, really love them, and I do really love how this adventure starts. Like how Matt and Kirk said, I don't think I would pick all 3 movies to be on this list, and like Matt, I think the second Two Towers is my personal favorite, just because you get the introduction of Theoden, you get the introduction of Grimer and Gollum, but I still really, really love this movie. I love just forming the team. There are just true like movie magic moments, like when Gandalf first arrives in the Shire, and just how small this adventure starts, and you just see Gandalf and Frodo reuniting. I just think is a really beautiful moment. But then you just have like when that Balrog shows up in the Mines of Moria, like it still feels epic. It's like, let's fucking go, and just how that leads into, like, I know we're not talking about Two Towers, but how that leads into the opening of Two Towers, where Gandalf is just killing the Balrog as he's falling, I just think is great. And yeah, we talked about how Dead Man's Chest is kind of like the peak of CGI. I think in a way, like with the orcs and everything, this movie kind of feels like the peak of like practical effects. Like you see how, in my opinion, less than stellar everything kind of looks in The Hobbit because it's so over reliant on CG. I think this movie is such a perfect blend of we're getting practical effects and we're getting CGI effects. And I think really when you compare it to the fact that the prequels were coming out at the same time, which were just like completely dishing practical effects, the fact that this trilogy was like, no, there is a place to combine the two elements to make something really, really great, I think is special. And just the one last thing I just want to say about this trilogy as a whole, I think it's really fascinating. This one kind of gives us our Empire Strikes Back ending for the first movie in the trilogy. Like usually that would be saved for like the second movie, but like at the ending of this movie, we're kind of like, are our characters going to be able to complete this mission? Like they seem very, very screwed, and that they would usually save that for like the second chapter. I think saving that for the first chapter is really, really fascinating. But yeah, I still really love this movie.
And I'll jump on what Payson said. That's one thing I noticed was the practical orcs and goblins, like all those close-ups that they show them look great, and you compare it to the trash from the Hobbit movies. That's just a huge difference. I will say on the flip side, though, there is a lot of stuff here that doesn't necessarily hold up. Specifically, all the body doubles with the little people. For some reason on this, that was really obvious to me. Anytime there was a hobbit or a dwarf that you saw from the back, it was super obvious to me that was not the actor. That just stuck out to me really, really strong for some reason this time.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun stuff that's in this movie. It's also before Frodo becomes a bitch, for the rest of the series. I do think The Hobbit gets a little too much hate. I do like the first two Hobbits, but
I really
just be my take.
First Hobbit. I will defend the first Hobbit.
I think the first Hobbit.
Yeah, but overall, yeah, I just think I agree. Like, if I could do something different, maybe not all three, but I still think of a trilogy. I'm just glad that we don't do it.
Honestly, if you call these 3 of your top 20 movies of all time, you have to be honest. If you only had one of these movies to go on, it probably wouldn't be one of your favorite movies of all time.
And real quick, I will say, Kirk, I know you said you're not really into super serious fantasy stuff, so I'm very interested to see how much you love silly or goofy or fantasy stuff later down the line.
We'll talk about it. Maybe that'll come up. We'll see.
Yeah.
Nope. I'm talking great.
Okay. Anything else on this movie before we move along? I do not want to cut anybody off. Okay. I do love that we still do get 2 towers, so I can quote my favorite line from this, but we'll get there later. What's everybody's rating on this? I'm at 5 stars. It is I think it's a great movie. I overall thing, so I have no issues. It's hard to top that. Kurt, Zach, you're what?
5. Give it 5-star. 10. Okay.
10 out of 10. Koho.
3.5.
Better than the half that you were going to. Kirk.
Yeah, it's 3.5 for me. Solid movie, just no real connection to it.
Yeah.
Fair.
Dude, Kirk and I being on the same team is so fun.
4.5. Again, if we were doing 2 towers, I think that's a 5-star, but this one I would give 4.5.
Matt.
Yeah, I pretty much fall in with Payson. 4.5 for this one. 2 towers is only 5-star with 3.
All right. 2 more movies left. We're saving the best for last, so we'll go to the next one. We are going to Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver, Martin Scorsese. This is a movie I've been very critical of, I will say, in the past. I have, because I don't really love the ending of this film. I told myself that I need to revisit it because I think I'm being a little too harsh on the ending. I was being too harsh on the ending, I will say. I was too harsh on the ending. I think it's more of a dream in my eyes now, overall, or him imagining it at the end, not him trying to be redeemed of any sorts. I do love the story based on this movie, though, with Scorsese, like, whether truth or not, that he was going to literally go kill a guy because he was hopped up on coke. Because the MPA, the production, like, told him he had to edit this movie down, like it wasn't thing. So basically, they were telling him to mess with his masterpiece, and he was on coke and had a handgun, and he was going to drive to the person's house and put a bullet in him. Which is, we wouldn't have had Scorsese.
That is ridiculous.
Yeah.
That is crazy.
He was literally going to kill the man, and he
I'd like to
turns
visit
out
that timeline and see how it turned out. That'd be interesting.
Oh,
me too.
If the cannoli doesn't fit, you must acquit.
He decided not to do that. He decided to change with the color ratio and get it under and keep the movie that he had. And this is the movie that we got. I think this is one of the incredible films. I think this is just enough representation on this list from like 70s crime films. I think that we're doing a good job. Overall, I think 70s crime is like one of the all-time like film genres. I think that and 70s horror, I think, are like 1-2. Like, I think they just don't make films like those anymore. They're something that I just find so gritty and just super enjoyable. Everybody saw Taxi Driver prior, I'm hoping, right? Or did anybody see this for the very first time? So I'm curious of like over time, because I think this is a movie that got really hyped for me when I was growing up. Like my uncle really liked Taxi Driver. He thought it was a really sweet movie. I watched it when I was way too young, I would say. Not like Mike age, but like probably 10. Probably shouldn't watch Taxi, like get to understand what Taxi Driver is all about. But the more I get in age and stuff, I really enjoy how it's set. So I'm curious what's everybody else's take on Taxi Driver overall, first time watch, and then how you guys are feeling on a rewatch. So the floor is yours. Take away.
Yeah, I can start here. Once again, we're hitting kind of like my personal canon. Like, I discovered this movie in high school, and it was one of the movies that made me like obsessed with movies. I've seen this movie probably, aside from maybe Dead Man's Chest, probably the most out of any of these films. It's still one that I still absolutely love. It probably just barely, but still hits my top 5 Scorsese, which, like, he's one of my favorite directors. So that's really, really high praise. I think De Niro is incredible in this film. You completely see why the character of Travis Bickle has endured for so long and why he's still considered one of the great movie anti-heroes. Like, in a weird way, I think he's kind of like the quintessential anti-hero, where like, here's a guy, horrible person, has horrible ideals, just going through life, but then at the end he does something somewhat heroic, so it kind of like completely puts your whole like perspective of the character in line. I remember watching, I watched the movie a couple nights ago. I watched it at night, and just like, you could be watching this in the nicest theater. Like, I've seen this movie in theaters, and one of my favorite things is you can be watching this movie in the nicest condition, and because of how gross the movie feels, you are still gonna feel like a rat is just gonna crawl underneath your legs because of how just disgusting and how gross Scorsese shoots the whole movie. I think this movie is funnier than some people give it credit for. Like, the scene I will always go to is when Travis is talking with the Secret Service agent. It's one of the most like awkwardly funny scenes in movies I think you'll ever see, where like, here's a guy that's clearly like unstable, and the Secret Service agent can clearly tell, but he doesn't want to say anything. And I just think that's a lot of fun. Yeah, Jodie Foster is excellent in this movie. Harvey Keitel is great. The score by Bernard Herrmann, one of like my favorite film scores of all time. I personally really like the ending. I totally get like the dream scenario that some people say about the ending. I personally don't view it as that. I don't think they're trying to redeem him, because to me, one of the most important shots in the ending is when you go back to Travis Bickle's eyes and you see the red light in his eyes. I think that's Scorsese trying, kind of telling us like, look, this guy isn't just like a new person now. Like, it's still the same Travis we know, and he's still unstable. He's still on edge. And the last thing I just want to say about this movie is, watching now a lot of Paul Schrader movies, while this is definitely a Scorsese movie, I definitely this feels more like the Rosetta Stone for Paul Schrader than it does for the Rosetta Stone for Martin Scorsese. Because if you look at movies like First Reformed or like the card counter or blue collar. I just see a lot more like Paul Schrader tropes in this movie than I do with Scorsese. But yeah,
a male of a specific profession,
yeah,
losing his brain and
losing.
becoming very cynical about the world. Yeah. It's the formula. I love Taxi Driver. I've seen it a number of times. I also probably saw it when I was like somewhere between 8 and 10 years old, because my dad just like watched whatever he wanted, and I was there. And is my second favorite Scorsese, and I honestly after Goodfellas because I'm a basic bitch. But I think that might be what really brings it down so low, or even like limits its esteem, just because when you're part of someone's filmography that is so perfect, you start to compare it to himself. You're starting to compare it to other Scorsese films rather than like all of film. So a number of people, like including myself, probably like, I'm only going to include one Scorsese movie or one by this, and then it limits its potential to have Taxi Driver rise up there. I mean, people didn't do that shit with Lord of the Rings, obviously, but they should have. I mean, Patience had a lot of it. I also don't see it as a dream sequence at all. It's more like a false redemption. Like people weren't. It's like sometimes we reward acts of violence as heroism rather than seeing the deep down root and cause of what made a person do this. And he's just going to enact violence again. Is that last shot, the red eye, is like he's going to explode. It's not gone. His like urge and psychosis is still ready to go kill another president. Because the thing is, he wouldn't have been redeemed if he did get caught by a Secret Service agent. He would have shot the candidate, and then never would have happened. So his violence just got enacted in a way that people can reward him for it. Doesn't mean he's not going to do something again later. It's a perfect character study. I always forget that, like, how patient it is with really developing into a plot. It gives you so much time to get into Travis Bickle's head. And like Jodie Foster stuff doesn't happen until like the last 40 minutes, even if so. And that's really like, now you understand his character. Now we're going to put him into a plot for the last bit, and watch, how he reacts to that, which is exciting. And it is like one of the best ugly movies. It's the prettiest ugly movie there is. I love how just like constantly damp New York looks in this. It just looks like, because there's so much glare coming off the roads, that makes it look like it's constantly wet. I don't think anyone has ever shot a car better, like inside of a car. Just the glares and the use of lights and the angles he uses on his face. It's just really perfect stuff. So.
I think what I want to say is, like, when I say the dream sequence, no, I 100%.
No, you're
my
wrong.
viewpoint.
Move on. Okay, I'm sorry. Go.
What I think is with the red eye and everything, where I was on it all the time, is him having that sequence with her at the end was always like, it's like their redemption. But where I would have been better of articulating myself is, I think it is that false redemption. I think he is still a character. They're not trying to save the character. So made me like it more this time versus me trying to do that redemption of him where I took it the first time watching it. So I agree with both of you. I just said it the wrong way.
Do you think the first time you just blinked in the middle of that shot, you just went to it? And you're like,
maybe I just didn't pick up on them. Maybe I just didn't get anything from that. Or maybe I was just pissed off at before that. Just didn't care.
There are people I know that genuinely think like the last 10 minutes of that movie are just a dream. So that's
like he's like dead or still in a coma.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's where I take on it. But everybody else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much similar. I also saw it probably too young for the first time and didn't really grasp it. But it's great. The De Niro is amazing, and pretty much really all the performance, all the way down to Peter Boyle, is great. Martin Scorsese and his little scene is tremendous, even for him. So that's great. The ending, I'm kind of torn on the ending sometimes. Depends on which viewing it is, how I'm feeling when I'm watching it. I still don't love Sybil Shepherd showing up again at the end. I think if Scorsese didn't come out and say, "Oh yeah, it's all true," if he would kind of leave it to people, kind of let them interpret their own way, I think people would be more accepting of the ending. But great.
I was gonna say Scorsese's little bit is probably my secret MVP of the movie. Is Scorsese's cameo. I think he's so perfect in that scene. And I wonder, like, when you're Martin Scorsese and you direct so like precisely the movies you make, that when you insert yourself into a character, is it because he couldn't find anyone else to do it, or he just had such a specific vision that he knew how to do the part that no one else could get? I think that's so interesting to me, and how he's such a good actor in like pretty much everything you see him in, even in something as dog shit as Shark Tale, and he just hits a home run as being the best part of it. I love Scorsese as an actor, but I also for fear of summoning a person. Albert Brooks is great. This movie, I think, for a first film performance, I think he is really good. Kind of stepping into a part that is very unlike the stand-up he's doing at the time. So I love Albert Brooks in this as well. So and Sybil Shepherd does not get enough love. I think she's really good too. So.
I think Albert Brooks is getting some Albert Brooks bits in there. He's still getting his time to like just let out some lines in that, especially his first scene.
We are.
Muted.
Sucks. No, I've seen this multiple times, obviously, and it's always left more questions for me than answers, which I think is why it's such a great movie. But I love the, I've talked a lot about how much I love like dirty 70s New York is like my favorite aesthetic in movies, and no movie does it better than this. But as far as the story goes, watching it this time, I think it's just because I never knew like how much am I supposed to sympathize with him? How am I supposed to feel? And I feel like this time watching, like it's a real like it's a story about a descent into mental illness. It doesn't feel that way because it doesn't have like big like movie mental illness moments. But you see like those early scenes where he's doing the narration, he's keeping that journal. Like he knows that there's something wrong with him. He knows he's missing something as a person. And he's trying to find he's like desperately trying to find out what that is. You know, he keeps saying things like, I don't know much about politics. I don't know much about movies. I don't know much about music. Like he's trying to grasp onto something. And it's interesting, Koho brought up the scene with Scorsese. And that scene comes right after Betsy breaks things off with him, like totally, like he knows he's not going to be able to see her again. And he then almost immediately after that, he has a scene with Scorsese where he's talking about going to kill his wife. And you look at his eyes, he's scared. And I think he's afraid, like he knows there's violence in him, and he knows he can become this guy. And after that is the scene where he goes to Wizard. And he's like, Wizard, I got bad thoughts. And you see there's fear. Like he's scared of what's going on with him. Like it's not like, hey, I'm this like badass guy who's going to go shoot people. Like he doesn't want to be this person. And I think like what he starts to do is he's looking for like a purpose, like something to do with how he feels, which is why he connects to Palantine. And I think the reason why he later tries to kill Palantine is because he lets him down. Because if you listen to that speech that Palantine is giving in the scene where he's about to kill him, it's meaningless. It is just empty platitudes. He is saying nothing, and I think that's the whole point of that character. Is like Travis wanted, like, because he makes himself sound like, oh, we're going to do these great things and change things, but he's saying nothing, and he gives nothing to Travis. So I think that's why Travis wants to kill him, and eventually he goes on to transfers that to Iris. But I think it's just a really fascinating exploration of this guy's mental state. And as far as the ending goes, I do think it's real, but I think like what got me is, it's the eyes, the red eyes, but also you see that scene where like this film speeds up a little bit. And he looks in the rearview mirror, and it goes back to that like muted colors, color scheme that you had in the shootout. So like his mind's kind of, you see his mind's still there. And then the first time I ever did this, I watched the credits the whole way through, and at the very end of the credits, Bernard Herrmann's score almost turns into one of his Hitchcock scores. Like it becomes like scary. Like it just sits out those tones real hard, and like it portends something terrible is going to happen. So like you definitely get a feeling like the world thinks this guy's okay, and he got the violence out of his system, but that's definitely not the case.
One last step to go off you is why it's such a insightful character study is because it's also like uncomfortably prescient. But today in like our incel culture of today, before incel was a term, it still gets us the insight of anyone who enacts such violence in our culture. There's a little bit of Travis Bickle persona to these people, and Martin Scorsese had an early kind of examination of what causes a person to go down such a hole.
Like, there's a reason why people that like to use like movies as a scapegoat for why people are violent, why this is one of the movies that still comes up with people saying, like, does this movie inspire violence? Which I think there's a bigger talk, but I would disagree with that take. But yeah,
I feel like Scorsese gets misinterpreted a lot because he shows violence, he shows crime, and people say, "Oh, you're glorifying it." And I think in this movie especially, he's not glorifying it. He's just showing you that point of view. And I think good.
Continue, fish that.
No, I was going to say I think it's his point. Scorsese's point of view is neutral. He's not saying this guy is good. He's just saying this is what's happening in this person's mind.
Yeah, and I also think he's going against the glorification of violence. So he's saying that's what the ending is about. His act of violence gets so glorified by the culture around as an act of heroism, when deep down, violence is violence.
I think if we went off Spielberg's interpretation that if this movie was silent, we would think he's glorifying anything. I think we get a lot of context from the words. Okay, we'll get star rating on this. Kirk.
First of all, one more last thing I want to say about it. A new thing I noticed this watch. They keep showing those close-ups of the meter on Travis's taxi. It says Rockwell Manufacturing, Pittsburgh 8 PA. I looked it up. That's a company that doesn't exist anymore, but it used to be right down the street from where I work. And also Iris is from Pittsburgh, so this is technically a Pittsburgh movie.
So this is going high. This is going high.
This is going to be at 4.5 for me.
Okay. I'm 4.5 as well. I was at 4 originally, so I did move it up. And I think Zach said something I really agree with. We get into this really of like comparing it not to just normal movies, but like just Scorsese movies and like where does it rank and stuff. I think that's a really interesting because he's not wrong. Because after Killers of the Flower Moon, I was like, where does this rank with like Scorsese in general instead of just film, like where I see it. So it's kind of interesting how that works. Koho.
4.5. Yeah, I love this movie.
Okay. Zach.
Easily a 5. My favorite of the bunch we talked tonight. And if it wasn't for Travis Bickle's dating advice, I never would have met my wife. So.
Oh.
At a porno theater?
Yeah, it's first date. Tried it for years and finally worked with Sarah.
That's a keeper.
Lord of mercy. Did you just park outside of her work and just stare at her? Payson.
5 stars, and I'm looking at my ranking. I would go Goodfellas, King of Comedy, After Hours, Taxi Driver.
That's not what was asked.
You need to revisit another movie. Matt.
It's a 4 stars for me.
You hate it.
That hurt. Okay. But I have a feeling like when we re-rank this stuff, maybe we'll be very in lockstep of what will move up, and who knows. But we'll see that in a second. We're going to go to the best for last, the funniest movie on this planet, Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I will be transparent. I watched this movie for the first time in probably 10 years. Probably 10 years. So I did give it a fresh rewatch. I will save my opinions for the end. We're going to start with Matt because I don't do this a lot for everybody on the show, but I believe this was Matt's number 1 of his 20 that he turned in, and that's correct. So that is fair. Yeah. You're valid in opinion that. I just need you to now talk about like why this movie just crosses all the boxes for you. Like, what does this do for you?
I mean, it's definitely no secret this is my favorite movie. I think that I think it has such an influence on a lot of the comedy that's come after. A lot of the comedians and the filmmakers are probably deeply influenced by this movie. It's just amazing how they're able to just play with the conventions of the films. Pretty much, they have no rules for it. They just do what they think is going to be funny in this given scene. And just like with the first movie, they got all the stuff going on in the background. This is a movie that you can watch, and every time you're going to notice something a little bit different. Something's going to catch your eye in the background. It's going to make you laugh. This is the first film that I ever actually made friendships with people just based on our shared love for the film. I remember in middle school and high school, I had a group of friends where we would just talk about this movie constantly all the time, quoting it, going through the little bits, the different things from the film. It's just I don't know. It's a comfort film for me. I feel like I said, I can see the influence in a lot of comedies, like Lonely Island, all their stuff, and a lot of the stuff. I'm sure that's probably not going to help my case with certain people on here, but but yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just love it, and I think that it definitely deserves a spot on this list for its contribution to comedy and film.
Everybody else besides Kirk and me have to go last. So Zach, you're pretty big on it, right? Like,
I really love it. I really enjoy it. I have nothing interesting to say about it because it's just a pure comedy and it's really funny. And that's all it needs to do. There's nothing much deeper in that. I will say, in all Monty Python things, I get a little distracted from the jokes because I'm trying so hard to figure out which actors played which person, especially like Terry Jones and Michael Palin, just like can never distinguish which one is which. And that's honestly what I think about for an hour of each one of these movies. I like appreciate Graham Chapman for just looking so different than the rest. So that's why he's my favorite, because you can tell who he is. I love the Terry Gilliam-ness of it that he brings to it too, and there's like weird animations that come in and out, interludes. He a bit of an underappreciated Monty Python member because he's less an actor, more behind the scenes force. But you can still see so much ties between what Gilliam did in the future to this that I think I didn't really notice before that I find really interesting. So, a lot of the darker ideas probably come from him.
Yeah, this was a movie that this is a movie I probably watched for the first time in high school, and when hearing all the descriptions of like this is one of the funniest movies of all time, I watched it, I was like, yeah, that makes sense. This movie is a riot. I think just like Matt said, just the world and just the tone this movie creates, it knows every single cast member knows exactly what they're trying to make, and that like no one is like on different wavelengths of like, oh, what type of comedy we're supposed to be making. We're just making the silliest and most absurd thing in the world, and it just somehow works. Like every time I watch it, there are just littler moments that just kill me every time. Like for me, this time during the Black Knight scene, like when King Arthur says, "Would you like to join my would you like to join my court?" And the Black Knight says nothing, and Graham Chapman's just like, "You make me sad," and I don't know why that just kills me, but it just does. Like the one smaller line I'll always remember is when Arthur and Patsy are trying to find a shrubbery, and they meet Roger, and they're like, "Do you sell shrubs?" "Yes, I am Roger, and I am a shrubber." It's just, oh, here's a random man that just sells shrubs in 932 AD. And just like, maybe one of the funniest visual jokes of all time is Lancelot running at the camera slowly, and the guards just going back and just just that spectacular, like, when they go to Castle Anthrax and just like, and after the spanking comes the oral sex. Just like, this is one of those movies, like, I feel bad if Brian is watching because I know he hates quote-alongs, but, like, there's a reason so many people consider this the most quotable movie of all time, because it genuinely is, like, but thankfully, the animator suffered a massive heart attack. He just dies right there. Putting the intermission 10 minutes from the end of the movie is perfection. Just Eric Idle, John Cleese, there are some who call me Tim, and just knowing the whole story about that he actually did forget his line and he just rolled with it. I think it was just perfection. I understand the people that like Life of Brian a little bit more because I do think that one just has a little bit more of like a through storyline, but like I just love the like sketch comedy nature of this. Oh, it's so funny.
I like that Monty Python is really just a bunch of friends fucking around on a movie budget. I think that those kind of movies have an infectious kind of energy, whether it's like Lonely Island or Monty Python or whatever, whether you like what they do or not. I can respect a bunch of friends that get together and fuck around, like the Grown Ups effect. But I
said that. I was like, you're right on, and you said
I can respect that they wanted a vacation to have fun. Like, I don't know. Anyway, I like hanging out with Monty Python. I'm one of the people who likes Life of Brian more. I think Life of Brian is just a little bit funnier for me. But like, I don't begrudge anyone who loves Holy Grail. It's one of my mom's favorites. I watched it at a young age, so this is just one of those like where those lines are just part of my family's dialogue, and always have been, and with my friends too. So it's one of those just movies that's ingrained in the culture that like you almost just forget as a movie, and then like when we talk about the greats, you're like, oh yeah, you have to talk about it. You have to put it there. So I would hate to watch this with Pace.
To the two men who love to laugh.
But we watched Life of Brian together in LA, and it was fun.
That was different. This is not.
That was different. Kirk, go ahead.
Okay. We're going to have to change some of the format of this show, Cody.
Okay.
In situations like this, you cannot bring on the person who loves the movie, especially if it's somebody I like. If somebody that I don't like, I don't care. But if it's somebody I like, you can't have them on here.
Oh, how do you want me to switch the show of YLS when people bring on lists that they like to?
Cody's already torn it apart for this movie.
I don't
It's
want to
okay.
just face. No, listen.
Go ahead, try to walk the tightrope.
I try to be. You come back, man. It's fine. I'm trying to be more. My wife tells me I'm too condescending. I'm trying to be more accepting of other people's opinions and other people's, whatever. So, if you tell me this movie, you think this movie's funny, I got to take your word for it. But as I said in my review, to me, it's like going to a children's birthday party for a 6-year-old, and they bring out a clown. And the clown's doing his clown thing. He's making funny noises and saying funny words. And the kids are cracking up and they're having a great time. It's fine. If I looked over and I saw an adult human laughing at that, I'm going to be concerned.
Depends how good the clown is.
And that's
Yeah.
that's how I feel. That's how I feel about this movie. This movie is just the word moose is funny. Let's say the word moose 12 times and people will laugh. That's just the entire movie to me. And I mean, there are a few, like I do love the bit that Payson was talking about with the guy running at the camera. I think that's funny. I think the dude attacking the castle and just stabbing everybody for no reason. I enjoy that. So, I mean, it's not like I sit there and not laugh the entire time, but there's so many stretches of this movie where and the thing is I do disagree with Matt where he's saying I think this movie is so on the nose. The coconut bit is funny for a second, and then they talk about it and point it out instead of just letting it hang there, and then they just keep doing it for the rest of the movie, and it runs out of steam fast.
But then you have stuff where the woman just hitting a cat against a wall several times throughout the.
But then you have shrubbery is a funny sounding word. Let's dedicate 15 minutes of this comedy to the word shrubbery because it's so funny. And we'll give our characters silly names because they sound silly. And I cannot. People say it's funny. I cannot wrap my brain around thinking this is funny. It just makes. I don't know what universe people come from.
In a row. We'd probably all laugh because it's so funny.
But yeah, that's my take on this movie. I just can't. Yeah.
Stop.
So I have been very harsh on this movie in the past. 10 years have passed, and I'm less harsh on it now. I will not say it's it killed me. It didn't. I just think I have an appreciation for that kind of humor in that I'm less violent towards. For some people that just kills them and they find it hilarious and they laugh a lot and I've said this before, but the night the witch scene, all that stuff that happens at the very beginning, I'm all on board for. The riding in with the coconuts, I think it's funny. I think the overall conversation between them, I think the Black Knight and getting chopped in the arms, I think those things work really well. I think burn her anyways. There's other ways to kill her. Blah blah. I find that stuff funny, and I was on. It's the later stuff that just loses me over time that I just don't find. But I think I honestly think it's it's like if you've ever been in the room with somebody, a group, that when you first meet them, they're very funny and you're laughing with them and blah blah. But that act it drains on you over the time that you're with them, and you're like, shut the fuck up. Like, I laughed at first, now I hate you guys. Like, you're on the opposite. So it does weigh on me. It does drain on me a little bit throughout the movie. It's a short movie, so I can't say I'm like in it for way too long. But like the twist on the medieval side of it and the British humor that I don't find as funny as everybody else. My take on it, I think majority of people find it as funny as because we don't talk like that. So then they're like, look at that. That's weird. Look, that's funny. Yeah. That's my always take on that. But overall, if you're coming to me to execute this movie, I'm not going to execute you. I think this movie definitely has a place for people that love that brand of comedy and enjoy it. It's just never going to range that high for me. If this was like a short, if that first like 20 to 30 minute chunk was at the beginning, I think it's brilliant, like really brilliant. Like, I arguably would put that witch scene up there as one of the funniest scenes in like film history for me. I find it insane. But that shrubbery shit, the over the top, I don't laugh super hard at that. But I could see, and hell, I don't partake in like any cannabis or anything, but I shit, like if I take like an edible or something and just watch it, I think I might be laughing my ass off. I'm not 100%, but I could see there's an environment that this could be like fucking killer. But I don't know.
If your movie needs drugs to be funny, your movie's not funny.
I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I think if it's funny, it could enhance.
It depends on how you are as a person. Sometimes it's just to relax and be into the movie.
Correct me. Remind me. What's the lead into when John Cleese during the like witch and duck scene when he says, "I got better"? What's the lead into that line?
She turned me into a newt.
Yes.
A newt.
Yeah, it's just like funny. Well, look. And then burn her anyways. Like, it's just like we don't give a shit at this point. We're just gonna kill her. Look, she's got a war. So yeah, really funny. We're giving ratings. Matt, 5?
Yeah, 5. 6 probably.
Okay, 6 if you could. Koho.
4.
Okay. Zach.
4.5.
Okay. Payson.
1, 2, 5 stars.
He said 1 first, so
I don't. I have to lock him in where he says it.
I don't like I don't love the movie. There are a couple bits, as far even though as harsh I was, there are a couple funny bits, and I do think Gilliam directs it pretty well. So I'm at 2.
And the llamas.
I'm 3 stars. So I'm higher than Playtime. And I think I'm at this point in time. If it was playing with a group, I don't think I'd ask to like turn it off. Like, I would watch it with a group. Where if you asked me 10 years ago, I'd be like, get me the fuck out of this room.
So it sounds like
I would take
that Kung Pao watch along then.
No. Honestly, and now to talk on this, like, I know people, like, they're different movies, but like people were just like, you don't like this movie? Well, do you like Airplane? Like, I don't know why those are correlated at all, but I would rather watch this than Airplane, personally.
Thank you.
I don't know how I feel, but that's my take. Okay. So we're gonna rank these. So what do we believe should be number 1 out of this list? We do this as a group.
We're not doing whiteboards?
Does everybody have a whiteboard?
I can grab mine.
Of course we do. Except for
Zach.
Zach.
Well, Zach doesn't play trivia anymore, so I would just go to him first.
I'm tracking. Okay.
I am not voting. So
how do you want to do this?
I'm going to just name. I'm going to name the 5th spot. I'm going to ask for the 5th spot.
Oh,
You're going to write the movie that you belong in the 5th spot.
So the
I'll switch it.
100.
Yes.
Okay.
100. What do you think should be in the 100 spot?
Okay. Because I had the one I thought was 96.
Yes.
So
I
I'm
switched
erasing
it. I know.
Yeah,
I get it. I switched it.
Shades of Rankle.
Yeah. I'll get a message later. All right. Koho.
I'd say playtime.
Okay. Sure. I'll take your word for it. I couldn't see your board. Koho. No, Zach.
Pirates. Which I haven't seen it, but I'm sure my opinion would be the same.
Payson.
I also put Dead Man's Chest.
Okay. Matt.
Since we're gonna have all three anyway, I put Fellowship of the Ring.
Yeah.
Okay. And Kirk.
No surprise. Holy Grail.
Pirates.
Okay.
Can we go lower than 100?
So last.
Damn it.
So number 100 is Pirates of the Caribbean. Now I need your number 4.
That turned out better than I worried.
Koho wants to leave the show currently. Not happy. Okay.
Hold on.
We'll go. Okay.
This is. Yeah.
Tell me when you're ready.
Okay.
Ready.
Ready.
I'm ready.
Well, I was mainly talking to Payson. He was the only one that was like, Zach.
Holy Grail.
Okay. If Kirk changes, I'm interested. Payson.
I put Playtime.
Okay. Matt.
Playtime.
You changed your answer, you jackass. Come out.
Holy Grail and Koho.
I was trying to play the game. I switched to Fellowship, damn it.
Koho gets the final vote then, right?
No,
No.
Cody does.
Oh.
I'll do anything.
Is it tied? Is it tied?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
2
two
Holy
for
Grails and 2
Playtime,
Fellowship.
2
Or
for
not
Holy
2
Grail.
Fellowship, 2 Playtime.
Oh no! I'm not. Koho.
Coco, you
Decide
get to
between
change.
the
You
two.
want Fellowship or
Oh, yeah. I would pick Playtime as being worse.
What do we do?
So Holy Grail automatically gets the next spot then? Or do we have to vote?
No.
Yeah. No, we're voting again. We're voting
Again.
again.
Try again.
It may be just obvious, but it's there. If anybody wants to play the game or switch things up, Matt's like, I bought another time. I bought one more spot.
I'm so annoyed. I've been out of the rank of game forever.
Playtime would have been next for me. So I'm not.
Payson,
Fellowship.
Matt.
Fellowship.
He's such bad. Holy Grail for Kirk. Koho.
Fellowship.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh God.
So Fellowship goes? Is that right?
Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
That's why we had to vote again.
That's exactly why we switched. Okay. So now we're voting for number 1
Oh, number 1. Okay.
Taxi driver.
because obviously number 2 will be whatever's left. So it's Taxi Driver or Holy Grail.
This is tough.
That's crazy. Like Matt played the game perfectly. Matt's like,
Cody, just make sure we're putting the one we are putting at second, correct?
No, first.
1.
One.
The
Never
winner
mind.
for the episode.
The winner for the
The
episode.
winner for the episode, because whatever doesn't get picked will be number 2, and nothing
Yep,
changes.
that makes sense. Yeah.
There's no anti. Okay, now let's vote for 1 when there's only one option. Okay, we'll go Matt.
I'm sure Kirk probably didn't have to change his board. Holy Grail.
Holy Grail. Taxi Driver. Koho.
Taxi Driver.
Okay. Zach.
Queen Latifah's Taxi.
Okay. And Payson.
My vote wouldn't have mattered, but I also put Taxi Driver.
Yeah.
All right. So Taxi Driver was number 1. I already had that saved. So based on this ranking right now, 100 would be Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, Playtime, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring, Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and Taxi Driver. The next episode everybody will watch. Hold on, I gotta pull up the list because I'm terrible at this. Just to determine what's on the next episode. I want to thank Matt and Zach and Payson for being on. I appreciate you guys. I think you guys added a lot to it. I'm glad that you guys enjoyed majority of the movies that you guys saw, because could have been worse. The movies that we will be talking about next time, 95 through 91, is Jurassic Park, A Few Good Men, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory,
Yeah.
The Breakfast Club, and almost Best Picture winner, La La Land. Those are the movies that we will be discussing. The group that I have 5. I think I could add a 6th one, but as of those people are Kirk, me, Koho, Cameron Holtzman, and Brian Michaels. So we will discuss that, and that will be the list, and then we'll rank, and then we'll continue down. We have a lot of good movies. Interested to see how this episode goes. See if Kirk has still got hair by the end of the series.
Long series. I
will catch you.
I thought top 100s are bad.
Catch you on the next one. We have Breakfast Club with Brian Michaels and Kirk is going to be electric.
Yeah,
so I'll catch you.
Holy shit.
Catch you on the next one. Bye.